This time on Holy Ghost Notes.
That's the mecca of fun.
Boom.
I can't play that.
Keep up with the bald.
You look more like your baby than your baby looks like you.
What's up, what's up, what's up? This is Tim and Matt, and you're listening to the Holy Ghost Notes podcast. How you doing, Matt?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. Now that we have some of this stuff worked out.
Yeah.
It's been a whirlwind. As some of you know, the ABR camp was hit by COVID. Mm-hmm. And I'm really proud of our team for handling things the way that they have. It's the wild, wild west right now. You know, if you're on tour as a band, or if you are attending a rock show or a live concert, you know that there's some level of risk involved. And of course we know that is the case, but when it hits your camp, it's tough, and you have to roll with it and figure out on the fly how you're going to get back on track. So that's really what happened. I mean, we were hoping for the best, tried to be prepared for the worst. We got derailed, had a bunch of COVID hit our camp, and we had to figure out how to handle it. So we rescheduled a bunch of our tour. In the end, we canceled Minneapolis, which we're so bummed about. And then we rescheduled Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Tempe, Anaheim, and Los Angeles at the Belasco.
Okay.
And the hope is that we play at a festival in Sacramento on Saturday. And everybody's on the mend. Everybody's doing pretty well, actually. So that's most importantly, you know, the health and safety of everyone is in a pretty good place.
That's great.
So thank you to those who have been hoping and praying for us and with us. We really appreciate the support, and we appreciate people being understanding of the situation. You know, Obviously we didn't set the stage and dial in the lights only to figure out, oh, well, you know what? We could do the show, but forget about the fans. Let's tear it all down. Like, that's obviously not our goal and not our heart. And it sounds crazy when you lay it out like that, but I mean, that is what some people think, unfortunately. And I just want to applaud those that are positive and praying for us and supporting us. So thank you. First and foremost, thank you. Part of the reason that this episode has been a bear to get together is I don't have what I usually have to record an episode, and you only realize how much stuff you need when you have to like pull it all together.
That's right.
And record something. So I put Tim through a living hell last time and recorded it into QuickTime because, once again, I don't have everything I need yet, and he had to like deal with Pro Tools. It shut down 50 or so times. Like, you must have been just punching holes in the wall.
If I had any hair left, I would have been pulling it out. But
I was about to go there, but you know, you look good. You look good with a shaved head. So does Jake. So does Dustin. Like, seems like everybody I know that does not have a full head of hair looks very good without it.
I put out a tweet the other day. It was like, thank God that being bald and bearded is in style right now.
Right?
I don't really have a choice in the matter.
It really is in style. So, like, to that point, I'm pretty much done talking about the band and COVID stuff, if that's cool. So let's just go to something more, I guess off the cuff. But
you've probably been talking a lot about it, so you don't have to talk about it
here
anymore.
and there. Yeah. Would you ever shave off your beard and just have eyebrow hair? I mean, essentially, that's what we're talking about. Like,
I would. I have before. I used to. I grow hair so fast. Like it's actually annoying just to keep up with the bald, because like parts of my head still grows hair, you know, but I have to shave it to kind of keep it all like bald, or mostly bald. And the beard kind of like, evens it out a little bit. I used to like hold to this this thing where like my beard couldn't be any longer than my hair. So that was kind of like the setting. And then with no hair, it's like, well, you can do whatever you want with the beard because that's all you got.
Right. Yeah, you can do like the Pennsylvania goatee, I call it, or the Lancaster County goatee, where it's like the mustache that goes down into the goatee. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I haven't. For a while, I was never really able to pull off facial hair. I was pretty much clean shaven. Sometimes had like the chin stubble. At one point, I tried to do like the Amish like helmet strap. I don't know what they call it, but like right along the jawline. You know, I
remember that too.
Didn't really work.
That was not a great phase for you, I will say. I mean, we've all been through rough phases. I will say that ranks near the top of your, like, you probably look back and you're like, ah.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the dreadlocks when I was like 12, but it is up there for sure. I'll never do that helmet strap thing again. The beard so far has fit me the best. It's gotten me the most compliments, I will say. I was clean shaven when my first son was born. And I think it was just too much. I looked too much like him. Like I looked like a baby, you know? And so I kind of felt like I had to grow the beard out.
Okay.
A little bit at least.
Were you like insecure about that? Like if you were at the grocery store, you were afraid that people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you look more like your baby than your baby looks like you."
I can't say I was insecure. I actually kind of thought it was funny.
Okay,
because
that's good.
Like at the point that my son was born, face swap was like really big, and so it would actually be quite fun doing the face swap where it would put my face on his and his face on mine, and not much would change, you know, because it was pretty much just a big baby. Yeah, the only thing I was insecure about the bald at the very beginning. Like when I first started losing my hair, I felt like I was losing a little bit of my confidence. And then, I just embraced it, you know? It's like, it doesn't really matter. And honestly, I probably needed to be humbled. And in fact, that was what I was praying for, to be completely honest. A friend of mine told me that one of the most dangerous prayers you could pray is, "Humble me, Lord." And I prayed it, and I lost my hair. So don't pray that.
Wow. So you think they're connected? You think the two are connected?
No, I'm not blaming God. It's more. I'm just.
I mean, maybe.
I'm just saying.
Maybe.
It took me to a better place, I will say.
In the end.
I mean, thankfully, I had already scored my wife. You know, I have kids. You know, I'm okay now. I don't need the hair to impress anybody.
Right. That's funny.
But I actually think it's helped me in the long run, like with my job position and stuff, like interfacing with high-level clients, CEOs of companies and stuff. There's a sense of respect that comes with having no hair, as opposed to, like, I had a big curly mop top, you know?
I remember that.
And then after that, I had, like, a mohawk. My wedding photos, I have a mohawk in. And I don't know how much respect I would have really been given walking into a high-level marketing meeting with a mohawk.
Yeah, so, not much.
You know, so the bald, I think, has helped me in many ways, and probably not a decision I would have made if I actually could grow hair. But it's actually the easiest and nicest. Like, I love having a shaved head. Like, I don't really have to do anything other than just keep up with shaving it. It's It's very little work. Save a lot of money on hair care, and yeah. But
it's amazing how much time we spend thinking about ourselves and how we look. I mean, I look back on my teenage years and even my 20s. Like, I had a flat iron. I would flat iron my long hair.
Oh, me too.
I remember thinking about, like, you know, which stores were selling jeans that. Well, at that time, it was like just girl jeans because men's jeans were baggy before men's jeans became skinny or slim fit or whatever. But it's just crazy how much time you think about how you look, you know?
That's right.
And you base your life on how you look. And, you know, all of us do it at some point in our lives, and others don't aren't as concerned because, well, for a variety of reasons, but in my opinion, the more your job and your lifestyle has to do with how you look, or your relationships are dependent on your looks, the more you're going to be concerned about it. And the more you're concerned about it, the more you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and the more you look at yourself in the mirror, and the more you don't like. And it's just this cycle of I don't like how I look because I look at myself in the mirror a lot, and I look at myself in the mirror a lot because I don't like how I look. And it's really sad because you hear people talk about how they they'll have work done to the way they look, and I've heard people talk about how they regret like ever having that done, and they wish they could just go back to the way that God made them. In other words, I mean, that's not as upfront as that. That's obviously a shortened version, but the sentiment that you get is, man, I just wish I would have been content with the way I looked and didn't do all of this to correct something that was okay. So obviously, this is a deeper issue for all of us. And as a teenager, you're just trying to figure it out. Like you have no idea who you are. You have no idea how you want to look. And it's embarrassing to look back at my teenage pictures when I was starting the band and be like, man, what my parents must have been mortified. Like, what is my son thinking? Where will he end up?
You were nowhere near as bad as some of the people I knew.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, we all kind of...
Probably some of the people you toured with, too.
For sure. But in comparison with, like, my siblings, who were on the straight and narrow, and, they looked the part, it was like, ooh, boy, we got a black sheep on our hands here, The second born...
Drummer in a death metal band.
Yeah,
it's funny. Yeah, it is crazy how much time we waste on how we look, and how it really can, just like control how we act towards people, and
affect your mood.
Affect your mood. You can miss out on opportunities just because like. How weird is it that you could lack confidence in something that you do that has completely like no relation to how you look,
right? And
you could lack confidence or do it worse because you're not confident in yourself, just simply because of how you look. And
right.
And in reality, like, you're your biggest critic. I mean, you're the one that's you like. If you think you look like a cow, you probably don't look like a cow. If you if I think I look like a baby, probably don't look like a baby. It's just like you're
Although
your worst
you
critic.
You might look like a baby. You might too, especially if you think you look like a baby.
Would disagree. Yeah, but it's something to think about, because I mean, I still find myself slipping into vanity is really what it is. It's caring so much about how you look that you forget other things that are more important. Not that you shouldn't, take care of yourself and, take showers and shave and clean up and dress the way that you like to dress. I mean, there's a portion of our identity that comes with, what makes us comfortable, the clothing that we like to wear, not just comfort level clothes like sweatpants and stuff, but how we feel comfortable going out and presenting ourselves. That's important. It's just there's a fine line between like caring too much about it and caring enough about it to not be a slob.
I'm more so speaking to like the insecurity aspect of it. I think.
Right.
I mean, at least for myself, that's where it would have come from. I'm insecure about something, and somehow human nature says, don't let other people see that thing about you. If they see it, they won't like you anymore. And so you live your life trying to hide this thing or aspect that you are, in hopes that no one sees it, which is a hard battle to fight, because then you're constantly having to wear this mask and live up to this person that you're not.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And so like you can come to terms with the fact that you look a certain way, and you can deal with that insecurity, and then you can just be that person, which is a lot easier, as it turns out.
You'll be a much happier person in the long run if
Yeah.
you take that approach, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's hard to figure out as a kid, but it's funny talking about, like, you know, your phases and my phases. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know, you're imperfect too. Okay. It's not just Tim and I, right? I'm hoping we can all agree on that. And you've been through some cringy phases. I mean, maybe Tim and I have been more extreme in that, but either way, here we are.
I might try to find the most cringy photo of myself, and I'll make that the cover of this episode.
I like that. As long as it doesn't include me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe I'll try to find one of you too.
Yeah, like you and I together at, I don't know, a meeting 10 years ago.
Brick by brick, yeah. I actually just saw that like screenshot the other day. It came up on my feed.
Yeah,
it's pretty cringy.
It was pretty cringy. Well, there you go. Well, text me first. Make sure I'm okay with posting
that was
it.
Back in 2010, I think, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. So so we don't have a lot of time today, unfortunately. We said it in the Inner Circle pre-roll, but my entire family is sick, and you know, there's a lot going on, and we had a lot of technical issues trying to get to this point. So we're going to be keeping our topics relatively short today, probably keeping them to about 15 minutes apiece. But we are excited. So today we're going to be going through simple drumming versus complicated drumming as our drum topic, and then our faith topic is being a good steward. So
okay.
Why don't we jump right in?
Yeah, how about you take the drumming topic, and I'll cut you off at 7 minutes, and I'll take the second half.
Sounds good.
We never work like that, but let's see if we can pull that off.
All right,
it's very methodical.
Yeah. So I was thinking about something the other day. You know, as a drummer, I get impressed by other drummers. You know, when I'm listening to different albums, there's different elements that get me going, and I don't think you can group every single type of drumming into simply simple or complicated. Usually there's a lot of, you know, overlap. But I noticed something about myself, and that's just that there's certain things that I really appreciate because it's hard to play. Not necessarily because it's cool or sounds cool, it's just because it's hard to play, and I appreciate it knowing that I can't do that. And so usually what happens after that is I listen to it and try to figure out how to do that. And then once I do it, it's not quite as cool because it's like, now I know how to do it, you know?
Okay, sure.
But either way, I think there's a lot to be appreciated about complicated drumming, you know, busy, crazy drumming. Usually it ends up being in metal. Usually it ends up being drum solos. You know, you have guys like, you know, Tony Royster Jr., who does just insane drumming. And I would go as far to say that, like, if you were to drop a drum solo over a pop song that he does, it probably wouldn't be very tasteful. But if you separate the two, it's still, you know, like, it's really impressive because what he's doing is crazy. He wouldn't play it in the studio over the pop artist song, but he would solo. With metal, the drums are actually what drives the song in many cases. It's what really gets you going. It's what makes the show so insane. It's like the force behind it. So you need that complicated drumming. But then I was thinking, so what actually brought this whole thing on is I was listening to Linkin Park. I'm a big Linkin Park fan, for those of you that don't know. I always have been. And I've never really been that big of a fan of their drummer. And the reason why was because it was too simple. But I was listening to it in a different way recently and just really appreciating him as a drummer. And it was so simple. I could definitely sit down and play it. But I watched some live videos. Linkin Park, if you don't know, they are, I guess, a new metal. New metal would probably be the style they would fall under if you were just going to choose one. But they have a lot of electronic parts. They have a lot of backing tracks. They have a lot of synth and drum machine parts that play along with their live show. And Rob, I mean, if you've ever played to a click, if you've ever played to any type of digital instrument, you know that if you play offbeat, it shows. It sounds wonky. If you hit a snare off time when there's 16th note, whatever playing behind it, it's going to sound weird. It's clear that you messed up. So I was watching Linkin Park live, and Rob was playing flawlessly. Had I not known any better, I would have thought that it was a corrected drum part that was perfectly on beat, like a machine. And some of you might be thinking, oh, well, it was a simple part. Of course you could play on beat. But that's not the case. I don't know if you've ever sat down to play some of Linkin Park's beats. Yes, the beats themselves are easy to play, but play it to the backing tracks now. Can you play as tight as Rob?
Right.
And I had this whole new appreciation for Rob Borden. Just how he writes as well. Like, the drum parts that he writes are perfect for the songs. Like, they might be simple, sure. But had you played a more complicated part over that, it would have actually taken away from the song. We've talked about this a little bit in being sensitive to what you're playing and being tasteful. But this is actually I think a different topic entirely, just simple drumming versus complicated drumming.
Yeah.
And if I were to break down who I am as a drummer, I actually fall more so on the simple drumming spectrum of things than the complicated drumming. Sure, sometimes there's those pop punk beats that could sound pretty complicated, but all in all, when you compare it to the most complicated drumming parts, it's much more towards the most simple, rudimentary drumming parts. So I was just thinking about this the other day and thought it was interesting. And as a drummer, I know that just being able to appreciate both sides for what they are and being able to learn from both sides is really important. So that's what got me thinking about this topic. I'll leave it open to you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. For me, I think of double bass, and I remember years ago, I realized that if you don't know what to play in a metal part, just play double bass.
Yeah, right.
Right? Just fill the space with double bass. Because it works. It's not going to sound bad in most metal parts over most metal riffs.
Yeah.
It's at least appropriate, in some capacity. It's much harder to write something that doesn't fill the space but still works. And so take away the double bass pedal. Now you have a single pedal, and you're having to figure out, all right, what am I going to play under this part that works, but also makes the music feel complete, right? And whole, and powerful, and helps the song along. It's usually more difficult to write a simple groove than it is a complicated one. Just like it's usually easier to play something fast than it is to play something slow. Just like it's usually easier to play eighth notes or 16th notes and stay on tempo than it is to play quarter notes or half notes, because space is hard to work with. And I think, to your point, something I think we should talk about is when you hear Rob playing a groove and you say, boy, I could play that. That might be true, but would you have made the decision he did when he wrote that drum part to use that specific groove? That's a whole nother thing. It's it's easy to hear a Coldplay song and hear and say, okay, sure, I can play that. But it's a whole nother thing to say, okay, as the drummer, that's what I would have selected. That's the decision I would have landed on.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see the top indie drummers or the top rock drummers or the top metal drummers make the kinds of decisions that they do. And usually the non-drummer goes, oh my gosh, the faster, the harder, the faster it is, the harder it is to play, you know?
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize is try to write a drum groove or a drum beat over a simple pop or rock song that is appropriate. Mm-hmm. And also then creative. So like Rob's a creative drummer. Mm-hmm. Like I can think about a Linkin Park song and be like, I know what the groove is over that, instead of just it being forgettable. Mm-hmm. Like he has a sound, right?
That's right, yeah.
And like you were saying about the backing tracks, there's such a thing as being on, and there's such a thing as being on. Like there's a difference.
Yeah, right.
You know, you hit that snare drum and you're just slightly behind the click, it's going to flam with whatever it is that's perfect, which is the backing track.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But if you're like spot on it, sounds tight, you know? And then other times you want it to kind of flam or like interact with whatever the backing track is. So like you can play behind the click, you can push the click. So I've always admired simplicity in drumming. But my passion, my heart is for complicated drumming that's not showy. Mm-hmm. Not showy for the sake of being showy, at least.
Yeah.
Like you and I would probably rather sit down and listen to a drum groove that's, I don't know, mid-tempo and something we could figure out than some of these guys that are playing at like 300 BPM. It's like, that's impressive, but for me personally, it's not musical. Mm-hmm. And I prefer, I think with a lot of other people, the musical aspect of drumming versus the impressive aspect of drumming. Right. Though I do appreciate that as well. But ultimately, like that's why metal will never be the biggest genre in the world, because it's
people
not
don't understand it.
Yeah, it's hard to latch onto. I mean, you got a guy screaming at you. You know? Why does he have to scream? I like the music, but does he really have? Is he saying anything? Are there words?
Yeah.
You know, it's yes, there are. There are.
Yeah. Well, and take people. I mean, like take a band like Nirvana. You know, straight up grunge. That was of its day, kind of like the rebel music, the metal of its day. You know, and even that, like the drumming is pretty simple, but it's iconic. Like if I were to do ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, you know, you'd know exactly what song I was about to play, right? Yeah. Because Dave Grohl knew exactly what to play at that point in Smells Like Teen Spirit, you know?
Yeah.
And if you listen to like the Foo Fighters now too, it's like all of the drumming is pretty straightforward, but there's certain things that they throw in that just takes it a step forward, and
I know.
You know, it makes it special, and you know, and it feels, you know, feels good, feels great.
It does, and maybe that's the bottom line for this. Like, what feels good as the drummer? What are you playing that feels good for what you're playing along to? In ABR, it would be it would not feel good for me to play what Rob's playing in Linkin Park for every single ABR song, obviously,
or what Dave Grohl's playing,
or what Dave Grohl's playing, you know. So you have to know your audience, and you have to know the band in which you're playing for. But there's certainly something to appreciate about slower tempos just as much as faster ones, and you know, softer dynamics versus loud ones, and quarter notes versus 30-second notes, and you know. Years ago, Adam D was recording us from Killswitch. We were recording Thrill Seeker. And at that time, we were pretty new. And a lot of our music was around like 160 BPM. So we were recording all of he was listening to the pre-pro, I think, for it. And he's like, man, he's like, so much of this is samey. It's very samey. And we're like, what does that mean? He's like, just, it sounds the same. It feels the same.
Yeah.
Let's slow down some of the tempos and speed up some of the other ones. That's going to give you an appreciation for that fast part only because of the slow part before it. In other words, nothing's fast if everything's fast.
Some variation. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, man, that's true. So we like slow down the part in Wishful of Dreams to like 150 or 40 and then sped the next part up to like 190. I'm like, I can't play that. Beat detective, please.
Yeah. That's funny. I think in wrapping up this thought or this topic, if you can call it that, I think one thing I would challenge you all to do is go and listen to something that you might not normally listen to. I assume a lot of you are either worship drummers and listen to a lot of worship music, and or metal drummers or listen to a lot of metal music. So find something that you wouldn't normally listen to and really listen, study the drumming. Even if you don't appreciate it right away, give it some time. And I mean, the best thing I can say that I've done for my drumming, really, aside from just the general practice and learn, is listen to all types of music. Pull things that I like from all different types of music, because that's really having that eclectic taste is important for knowing how to play the right thing at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely, that's good advice.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know how much of our audience is, if you're a drummer and you're listening to this, if you're a worship drummer or if you're a metal drummer, or if we have a lot of other types of genres thrown in there too. But I think you're probably right about that. It's like a lot of metal because of ABR, and then maybe some worship and church drummers because of the spiritual aspect of this podcast. So if that's the case, you can do what I've done from time to time. My girlfriend, we realized recently that we like different kinds of music, and we're like, what is it that makes it so different? I said, well, you like singer-songwriters and I like bands. So I like Death Cab for Cutie, and she likes these singers, or these artists who I've never heard of, who are, it's just like their name,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because she's, her twin sister's a vocal major. So like they're both really good singers. So like go and listen to something like that and see what the drumming is. It's so different. There's a band called Kaleo that we've been listening to recently that's really good. Check out Kaleo. I think it's Kaleo. It's awesome.
I'll check that out.
Very creative drumming and just overall music. So
that's awesome.
Let's jump right into our faith topic. Our faith topic today is being a good steward, which, as we talked about, Tim, we've talked about this very little, but just in setting it up, doing everything to the best of our abilities and making good decisions, even and especially when nobody is watching.
That's right.
So I'll start this one off. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think of being a good steward is when I was a kid, my parents definitely felt like this was a priority and drilled this home with me. And I think it's because it's a biblical principle and mandate, and obviously being born and raised in a Christian home, it was important to teach what the Bible teaches, but also it's just a good way to, I think it's just a good way to parent. I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids, but I think just being a kid and knowing that everything that you're doing matters. And that even if you feel like, I'm looking at my friends and I'm like, man, they have Dreamcasts. They have all these extracurricular things in their, their life that I don't have.
Yeah.
Even if it is just Dreamcast, for me, it was like, that's the mecca of fun.
Yeah,
I don't have that. I wish I did. And
Sonic 3D.
Yeah, for me, it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater and
too,
Street Fighter. But it's like, it's easy to compare what you have to what someone else has. Rarely do we compare what we have to people that have less than we have. Mm-hmm. So if you teach your kids, or if you learn from an early age, like, all right, I might not have what other people have, but what I have still matters, then it gives you appreciation, a certain level of appreciation for what you do have, and you take care of it. If you're always comparing and always trying to keep up with the Jones and with what people have that you don't, then you might take what you have as just, disposable and replaceable and unimportant. And therefore, why would you take care of it? And why would you treat it as if it matters? And for me, speaking from a biblical standpoint, it's important to use what we have and grow and nourish what we have that God's given us, because as the Bible outlines over and over again, God will give you more, and he will continue to bring things into your life that is then your responsibility to steward. Mm-hmm. And it might start really small and simple and humble and modest. I grew up in a home where, we didn't have a lot of money. Obviously, I have 7 siblings, so kids are expensive, and we didn't have a lot of money to throw around at stuff. So the way I was raised was with, was within our means. And like I said, it was easy to compare what I had to what other people had. But I think my parents knew that if they could teach me to appreciate and be a good steward of what I had now, that when I had more, I would appreciate it, and I would continue to be a good steward of it, even if I all of a sudden had excess, which certainly, in westernized culture, I would argue that most of us do. We have more than we need.
For sure.
Certainly we should all consider ourselves pretty fortunate, fairly wealthy, and fairly comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I'm just reminded, talking about this, so many of us are unhappy. I mean, even in the midst of having so much more than we need. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we don't appreciate what we have, and we're constantly comparing ourselves to what other people have. And therefore, we lose this idea of how to be a good steward of what we do have. Mm-hmm. I would argue that some of that is because we just don't appreciate what we have. We don't think it is valuable because we're constantly in pursuit of more. More. Like, that person has more than me. If I could only have more, if I could have more money, if I could be better looking, if I could have a better job, if I could have a better relationship, if I could live in a bigger home. We're constantly grappling at these things without actually stewarding what we do have.
That's right.
So as it pertains to drumming, we talked about this. I don't feel like I was born with an exorbitant amount of natural talent. And I had to practice and practice and practice to be able to get to the point that I could play in a competent level with a metal band. Had I looked at drumming as like, it's cool, I enjoy it, but I'm not very talented at this naturally, and therefore, you know what? I'm just going to throw it away. I obviously wouldn't be in the position I am with the band. Mm-hmm. And it's testament to me that, if you're able to appreciate and steward what you have, then more than likely you'll get more of it, of that thing that you have.
Right.
And if you don't, and it falls apart, then you can at least sleep at night knowing that you tried. Mm-hmm. And you gave it everything. And I think there's a certain level of satisfaction in that. God designed us to work, to pour ourselves into our work. He created us with a drive to steward what he's gifted us with. And the Bible talks about laziness. Don't be like the ants, you sluggard. It's like, ants are workhorses. Mm-hmm. And they're constantly working with a limited size to create something a lot bigger than they are. So then, zooming out from the drumming perspective, it's like, what has God given me on a spiritual level? Well, I used to stutter. I used to have a speech impediment. Mm-hmm. We look at the Bible and we see people who feel disqualified based on, their handicaps or their inability to do something. And I think God looks at our lives and says, hey, if you're willing to work with what you have, I can give you more.
Yeah.
And when you have more, you'll appreciate it and not flaunt it. Mm-hmm. When I give you more, you won't just throw it away. You won't just use it for your own, benefit and power and dominion over other people.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
I think, you also notated like making good decisions when no one was watching. I think this is a big one that we don't always do the best job at, we do things so that other people notice. Mm-hmm. And the Bible's clear about like, don't let your right hand see what your left hand is doing. In other words, if you're giving in a public place financially or of your time, and it's so that other people notice you and they recognize you, then you have already gotten the full acknowledgement and reward. That's it. Like, hope you enjoyed that acknowledgement. I hope you enjoyed that credit that those people just gave you, because that's where it's going to stop.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give in private, if you serve in private, if you pray in private, your reward is so much deeper and meaningful in the end, because it was given from this heart, from this motive of I'm doing this because I love God. I'm doing this because I love other people, not because I need to have credit for what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. This is kind of a massive topic. As you're breaking it down, I'm like, wow, this really kind of works its way into a lot of different facets of life. And
for sure,
what got me thinking about it originally is I was driving, and on this, I was I think on my way to a meeting, and I couldn't get my Bluetooth to work. I wanted to listen to music. I usually listen to music or podcasts or something on my drive, and I couldn't get my Bluetooth to work. So there was either the radio, which I typically don't listen to, or, I sit in silence. And for me, like, I was just like, all right, well, this is a good opportunity for me to just talk to God for a little bit. I've got 20 minutes in the car, and I'm going to make the best of it. So, silent drive, started praying, and immediately started asking God for things. And I don't know if you ever like get to the point where you realize what you're doing, like in prayer or otherwise. Like you start to realize like what am I doing? Like, and then I basically got like hit with this. Like I was asking God questions. I was asking him for things. I was asking him for his blessing on like this, that, and the other thing. And then I was realizing I was like answering my own questions almost. I was like, well, I can, I want this. I want to, for instance, I was praying for my job. I was praying for more clients and more leads and, a bigger salary. And like, this is what I was asking for. And I was like, it just struck me that like, I can be a better steward of what I currently have in a number of different ways. One way of just be thankful for once. Like you said, there's always this drive to have more, to do more. Right. The stage of life I'm in is like, I'm like the housing market is crazy right now, and I'm looking around at bigger houses because my family's growing, and so like houses are constantly on my mind, like a bigger house. What do I need to buy a bigger house? I need to make more money. How do I make more money? I need more. So it's like all these things, and it's like, well, let me take a second just to appreciate not just the things I have, but I could be working harder. I could be a better steward of the time that I have throughout the workday to make these things happen. Like I was like thinking, like, am I actually living a life? Am I like in my job? Am I working my job? Am I, at home, like being, diligent and being a good steward of what I have at my home, being a good steward of my time with my family? Am I doing these things to the best of my abilities, especially when no one's looking, where that would warrant extra blessing or extra, am I ready to level up is basically like what I got to in this realization. And I love, this is often what happens. Like I'll be praying and I'll be asking God questions and I realize these things myself, which I guess some might argue is God just revealing these things to me. But I got to this point where I was just like, am I at the place where I can level up with any one of these things? Like, am I ready? Am I doing everything that I can to be the best in every aspect? And I realized I wasn't. I acknowledged a bunch of different areas where I could be a better steward of my job. I could be a better steward of my house. I could be a better steward of my time. And that just like, that brought me on this idea of, like, this is what I need to do right now. Like if there was a word or a phrase over my life, right now, it's be a good steward. And so that's actually why I texted it to you, Matt, because I'm like, let's talk about this because it's an important aspect. And like you, it was something I was raised with. It was, always, be the best you can, do everything to the best of your abilities for the glory of God. That was what I was raised hearing. And I don't do that necessarily with everything that I do. And I don't think the motivation behind being a good steward should necessarily be to receive more either. Like, right. I think, like we've talked about worship before and how worship isn't just, going to church and singing some songs on a Sunday morning. Like worship is a lifestyle. It's it's something that works its way outside of music into what we do with our lives. And being a good steward is an act of worship, I believe. I think doing everything to the best of your abilities is an act of worship. Like especially if that's your mindset. Like, God, you've given me this, and I am going to do everything I can to make the best of it. I'm going to do everything I can to appreciate this thing. And I constantly find myself even just undervaluing the season that I'm in, especially in the hard seasons. Like when it's when times feel tough. I just completely devalue what's happening, and I can't wait to get to the next phase. And so I'm not really sure. I'm still figuring this out myself in life. I'm trying to like take notes on my tendencies as a person, in getting distracted, in laziness, in my decision making when I can do one thing and decide to do another. I'm taking notes and figuring this out, and at the same time trying not to be too religious about it. Like that's almost the toughest part, is like walking that line before. Like, I don't want to get to the point where I'm so controlling over everything that I do that I get extremely hard on myself if I take a break or, that. I don't want to get to that point either, but I do want to be able to look at what I'm doing and see, am I being a good steward of this? Am I doing the best that I can?
Yeah. I years ago, my dad showed me a picture of him. It was one of my relatives. He's since passed, but he was showing my youngest brother, Caleb, who was, I think, around 6 or 7 at the time, how to plant a tree. And I think on the back of the picture, there was a quote. It's my favorite quote or proverb. I think it's a Greek proverb. And it says, "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they won't sit." And, I stared at it for a while, and I thought, man, that says a lot about living for the next generation and living your life in a way that sets up the future generations. Living a life that's selfless, and living a life that's not just for yourself but for others. And I think about simple conservation practices. So my dad used to work for the Lancaster County Conservation District. He worked there for 29 years, and he was oftentimes, out hiking with us. We would go on these camping trips, and there were times when I would go off of the marked trail. The trail's marked for a reason. You're supposed to stay on the trail. And there were times when I would go off of the trail, into the woods or through grass that was long, and I would make a new trail. And my dad would always, discourage me, like, "Hey, get back here. Like, don't do that. That's not good." And I always wondered why. Like, what's the problem with that? I'm not going to get lost. It's not unsafe. I'm just exploring. And I later found out it's because those trails are in place for a reason, so that there's not erosion. Because as soon as you wear down another part of the woods or a field, you all of a sudden create a new path for water to flow, which can create problems, downstream. You have, water that's now finding a new way, and it's carrying soil and sediment with it, and it's flowing down into a creek and a river and a lake and into, the Chesapeake Bay, and it's causing problems downstream, right? And I think this is very metaphorical. It's like what we do upstream matters to everything downstream. Being a good steward of what we have means thinking about life and people outside of our own person and, next 60 years on this life. It means staying on the trail. It means following the marks. It means thinking about the next generation and showing them how to do the right thing and think about the future. I think what's so upsetting to so many of us right now, with the pandemic, and with the political landscape that we just saw unfold and still, create so much division, is that so much of it is about so much of the division and the hatred and the angst has to do with us. It's like me, my independence and what I want in life and what I believe and what I think should happen. And it's like, I think ultimately, we're all trying to like veer off of this central path and show how we think things should be. And it's creating all of this, these problems downstream because we're all just selfish.
Yeah.
We all want what we want. And that's problematic because other people, someone has to pay for that downstream. Our decisions have consequences. What we do really does matter. And if you're a parent and you're listening to this and you're thinking, I want the best for my kids and their kids and their kids, and then you'll focus and you'll prioritize things that will benefit them, right? Keep them safe. You'll make decisions that will give them a foundation for their life. And as soon as we lose sight of that and we really start to create this pretense that like our independency is what matters the most, it's all about me, then we start to take away from this idea of civilization. The word civilization comes from the word civil, which means just, living in harmony together, even though we have our differences. Stewardship for me really is connected to good conservation practices. And I know a lot of that has to do with the way my dad raised me and his job for most of his life. But I just can't help but think about the way that we interact with each other and how it corresponds to us taking a walk and veering off the path and creating this damage and destruction downstream.
Yeah. what you said, it made me think of something. I heard this stat the other day. I'm not sure how true it is, but the truth of it isn't really the point that I want to get to. But I heard this stat that if you took someone from the 1% of top earning individuals in this nation, I don't even know how much it would be per year, but millions, if not billions of dollars a year. If they opted out of their income for an entire year, that 1 year of income would end world hunger. And when I first heard that, it got me really mad. And I was just like, how selfish, how ignorant are these people who are making so much more than anyone could ever need. And all they would have to do is sacrifice 1 year's salary, and they could live off of what they already have in the bank for that year, or change their lifestyle a little bit or whatever, and just donate that year of salary and end world hunger. Like, that's a huge deal. And it got me mad at first, but then I was actually convicted of myself. It's like, we all have these things that we can do.
Yeah.
And we're not willing to give up because it's about us. You're exactly right. We have this me mentality. We're always trying to increase. We're always trying to grow and get more. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, having drive to be better, to move up in life, it's not a bad desire. But when it clouds your judgment and ability to be a good steward of what you have and to help those in need, that's when it becomes an issue. And and that made such an impact. Like, my life recently has just been little tidbits of conviction, I think, where I react to something and then realize, oh, yeah, that's
I
me.
do that too.
Yeah, I've been getting slammed with conviction recently, but we've talked about generosity before and how there's so much joy. Like, when I look at anything really that Christ talks about in the Bible, traits that we should have, those traits aren't to belittle us or to make life harder. They're actually to enhance life. And I could tell you for a fact, whenever I'm generous, whenever I give away something that is valuable to me, I feel great. I mean, I think about that verse, where the young rich ruler who we've talked about before comes to Jesus and asks, how do I get to heaven? And Jesus responds, sell everything you have. If you read it one way, it's like, wow, well, that's how you get to heaven. Jeez, like that's not very cool. But when you think about it the other way, it's like, well, if you had no possessions, nothing to hold you back, nothing that mattered to you, then all that would matter is heaven. And heaven is so much more than any of these things. There's nothing holding you back at that point. It's complete freedom. It's it's like God wants these things for us because they're good for us. And so generosity, like being a good steward, like for me, like it is extremely rewarding. Let's just take like plants, for instance. If you're a good steward, if you plant something, you plant a seed and you water that every day and it sprouts and you continue to water it and you weed around it and it produces fruit. Like, that is so rewarding. Like, that end result is so rewarding. And yeah, it took some hard work and effort and attention and care to get it there, but it has fruit. And that's why I love the imagery of, like, the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit isn't something like, oh, I want that fruit, I want that plum, I'm going to pick that off the tree and take that fruit of the Spirit for myself. The fruits of the Spirit are just evidence. It's just like, if you have this in you, if you have love or joy or peace or patience or kindness or goodness or faithfulness or gentleness or self-control, those fruits you'll bear fruit of those things, which is just evidence of those things thriving and living. It's evidence that you're going in and weeding and, clipping off the dead branches, and, it's like, and I love that picture because of that. And I think that plays so much into being a good steward. Like, if we're being a good steward of everything we have, it's for our benefit. It's not hard just for the sake of being hard. It's not just something that we feel obligated to do. It's actually for our benefit at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. To play on your plant reference, I was at church on Sunday, and my pastor was talking about things in your life that you keep hidden. And I think he referred to them as hang-ups. But there are things in your life that you kind of keep in the dark. And he used this metaphor about a flower that comes into bloom. And much like we were talking about earlier, a flower in bloom is really just, it worshiping God. It's worshiping its creator. Just imagine a flower opening up and facing the sun. It's like its fullest expression of what it was created to do. And its fullest potential, the potential is realized of what that flower can be. And he talked about how some of us, many of us, don't open up and face the sun fully. There are parts of our lives that we sort of keep in the dark, and we turn just a little bit, maybe 10 degrees, 45 degrees, 90 degrees. And yeah, we're fully open, but there are parts of us that are still in the dark or in the shadows and not fully facing the sun.
That's right.
And, to your point about joy, that's exactly what I was thinking of as I finished my last spiel was joy is really at our fingertips if we are doing what God created us to do and being good stewards of what he's given us. And instead of having these shadows and sort of, protecting what we have like it's ours, like locking it up, like I can't lose this or I lose myself,
Right.
Like, this is mine. I worked for this.
Yeah.
Then we're really not realizing, the joy and the fullest potential of that thing. The Bible talks about, burying what has been given to you. And there are those of us that bury it so that it can never be found and taken and stolen, and it's just ours, right? And then there are others of us who take what we've been given and we grow it and we expand upon it, and we don't hide it and protect it as if it can't be lost, which makes us vulnerable. But it's in that this idea of generosity comes about. And I think at the root of it, we have to be willing to look at Jesus on the cross, if we're willing to look at anything in Christianity and see all of the symbolism, arms wide open, laying yourself down, putting other people first, taking that slap across the cheek, all because we know that in God we are accepted and we're loved, and we don't need to strangle someone else when they wrong us, when we feel slighted. I mean, this is something very close to home with all of this COVID stuff that's happening, and with all of the division. We feel slighted by other people, and we have to make a decision. Are we going to strangle other people? We can, and we can wrap our hands around them and say, how dare you? But as my pastor and I were talking about, he said, what will you get from that? You really have to ask yourself, look at the desire wheel and say, if I do that, if I do what I feel like doing, what will I get from it? And then ask yourself, can you get that from God? Can you get that satisfaction, that love, that justice, that affirmation, that grace, that retribution? Can you get that from God? Of course you can. Will you get it from that person if you wring their neck,
Yeah.
Maybe you'll feel like you get pieces of it, but
yeah, that's
we all know at the end of the day, yeah, it's a fleeting thing. And so stewardship has a lot. I mean, as we're talking about this, it has a lot of downstream negative effects if we are not good stewards of what
that's right.
we're given. Right? I mean, it's been pretty evident in this conversation. It's not just a matter of talking about this as if, well, God gave me drums. I can either decide not to work at it, or I can work at it and I can be in a metal band. It's like, no, actually, all of us aside, our hobbies aside, have things in our lives that if we mistreat and if we're misaligned in how we handle them, downstream there are very destructive outcomes. And on the opposite side of that same token, if we're that flower that opens wide open towards the sun and we're saying, I'm yours, here I am, hands wide open, whatever expression that comes to mind when you think of stewarding and giving back and thinking about others and passing it on. I just come back to that Greek proverb, a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they won't sit. It epitomizes stewardship in my mind, because you will not experience the fruit of your labor, at least not the full extent of it. When you plant a tree, it takes a long time to grow.
Yeah.
But you know that you not only planted that tree so that years and years and years and years later, someone's sitting underneath of it, enjoying it, or looking at it and taking pictures of it in the fall, or even using it for firewood 30 years from now. But also, you showed someone else how to plant a tree so that they can do the same for someone else.
That's right. Yeah. And this idea or what we've talked about can, I think, easily be discouraging. And we don't mean to bring this to the table for that reason. Like, this is 100% to inspire you guys. And so I guess some practical application here. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm examining myself. I'm examining my life. I'm examining my tendencies and the choices that I make. And I'm trying to figure out, where can I be better? And this can be a really discouraging process. And it can sometimes lead for you just to be like, this is too hard. Just stop. I have too much to work on. I can't handle this. I'm done. That's where I've gotten to multiple times when I'm examining, like, I need to work on this. I need to work on this. But like, what I would encourage you guys to do is just take it one step at a time. Like everything, you don't have to reach for the stars right off the bat. Right. The idea of doing something because no one's watching is not like, well, God's watching and Big Brother always sees everything. That's not where that comes from. It's to build character, and character can be built as slowly or as quickly as you want it to be. It's just about making good choices, taking the right steps. So
right.
I hope that this acts as an inspiration and as an encouragement for you all. As opposed to discouragement, because this is ultimately what's going to help you be just a better person. It's going to make your life better. You'll feel more fulfilled because of it, and that's ultimately where we're trying to get with all of these conversations that we have on this podcast. It's like, how can we be better? How can we live a more fulfilled life? How could we experience God in a new way? So yeah, maybe disconnect your Bluetooth next time you're in the car and take some time to pray and ask God some questions. And I'm sure you'll be asking those questions and realizing the answers as you ask them. That's at least how it worked for me.
To that point, I think it's about, for me, just, bringing this home, it's about being okay with the interruptions. Like, we all have things we want to accomplish in a day, and we all have an idea of how it should play out. But when things slow you down, or when things don't go according to plan, how will you choose to respond? And I think it's when we slow down and we say, all right, breathe. What is happening right now? I know it's not what I want. I know it's not what I planned for. but it's in that moment we can steward what's happening. We can steward what God's given us and building in us. We can steward who God is putting in our life in that moment. Mm-hmm. And this has happened a lot for me on tour. I'm warming up. Something happens, and all of a sudden I'm distracted, or someone wants to talk, and it's like, well, I can either focus on the show and warming up for the show, or I can just stop and take a break from it and have this conversation, or not be so focused on what I think should happen, but on what is actually happening right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And be intentional about like stewarding that time and this opportunity that I have, because it matters. And I would argue it matters more than what I was doing. The show happens, I still have time to warm up, and yet this really important thing happened that I couldn't have created on my own. Those are the things I remember. And so in a practical way in my own life, that's where I'm learning how to steward what God's given me and the position that he's given me in this band. Really doesn't have much to do with drumming. It more so has to do with where I am and who's around me because of my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I love that.
Yeah, this has been a really good conversation. I think stewardship is something that we've alluded to in a lot of different ways throughout this podcast. Mm-hmm. Certainly, it's not a new idea overall, but when you start from the place of stewardship, you realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot of other things connected to this one thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I didn't realize how big of a topic we tried to bite off in 20-minute time frame, but
right.
Yeah, it's a big one, and I'm sure we'll touch on aspects of stewardship in the future. We've obviously touched on aspects of it in the past as well. So,
right.
This was good. This was really good, and like I said before, I hope you guys are all encouraged by this. Don't let it frustrate you. Just take it one step at a time. It's really important.
Yeah, encourage, but also have a clearer view of what it might mean in your own life. Or at least be thinking about something that you hadn't previously been thinking about. I mean, if we're really trying to improve and live a more meaningful life, then that means there will be conviction, and there will be frustrating moments and conversations and uncomfortable conversations. And I mean, that's if our goal is what we say it is, then I think conversations like this are like, all right, this is gonna hurt a little bit. This is gonna sting a little bit. And I would certainly hope that there's some of that. Otherwise, we're just sugarcoating something that's
true.
We really shouldn't be tap dancing around.
That's a really good point.
And if you feel like you're successful in this area, then certainly, you must be in the clouds right now.
Yeah. Share your secrets, please.
Come on the podcast with us and fill us in.
What do you do?
Good job.
Cool. Well, I guess in wrapping up, if you guys liked what you heard today, or have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to us, Matt and Tim at theholyghostnotes.com, or really any of our social media pages. Feel free to shoot us a note or a message. Additionally, if you want to get more involved with what we're doing here at Holy Ghost Notes, you can check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Holy Ghost Notes. There's a number of different tier levels. The first one actually starts at just $2, which is, in our minds, $1 per episode. So if you think our podcast is worth $1 per episode, feel free to support. We're trying to stay ad-free, and thanks to our amazing Patreon supporters and Inner Circle group, we were able to do that, which is incredible. So check that out if you're interested.
Yeah, we have a good group.
Yeah, amazing group.
Got a good group. Thank you, Inner Circle.
Yes.
Our Inner Circle group is top notch, and continues to have the community aspect that we tried to initiate, and they just took it and ran. And
that's right.
They meet weekly. They continue these conversations, and they have a lot of fun. I think it's a really solid family, and community. So if you're interested in something like that, you need support, you want to have somewhere where you can continue having these conversations with us, that would be a good place to go. And if you really like this podcast, then you're certainly willing to get on board in a number of different ways. Like Tim said, starting from the $2 tier all the way up, and there's perks along the way. So check out our Patreon and feel free to support.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I do have a shout out actually for a new supporter. So huge shout out to Paul Patchkos. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the inner circle. Looking forward to getting to know you, and yeah, awesome.
Good
so
stuff.
I think that about wraps it up. If you guys are
great.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Make sure you're using that hashtag on Instagram and Facebook if you guys post your drum videos. Hashtag Holy Ghost Notes. And yeah, you know what time it is.
You know what time it is.
Peace.
Never gets old.